Hey, 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 you know me. It's Dr. Cheryl BryantBruce MD, and you are listening to Chatters That Matters. I am your show host, the Celebrity Doc. So today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing none other than Chef Eddie G. And he is here with us to talk about everything culinary and to tell us about some of his travels around the world, some of the delicious, luscious things that he has eaten and made accordingly. And we'll talk just a little bit about our Super Bowl experience, because that is how we met, when we had the great fortune of sharing my office at the Jackpot Cafe in the Circa Hotel. Chef Eddie and I actually made that our temporary office, and technically it was his office because they got there earlier in the morning than I did, but by the time I arrived, they were gone, so it became my office. I'd like to welcome Chef Eddie G.
A pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure.
Chef Eddie G was in my office for 2 days in a row. We actually ended up conversating on both days. But during the second day, we actually really got to talk, got to know each other. He was there with the Fraticelli brothers, who are vintners there in Napa, Sonoma area, back in my neck of the woods. And so we had a really good conversation, but a lot of our conversation was about the Super Bowl, because we were all in for Super Bowl Media Week and the Super Bowl events. And you all had an amazing event by the poolside. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, anywhere I go, we're on the road about 300 days a year. So anywhere we go, I try to find a mobile office. So it's in a mobile office and a mobile kitchen. I need that instantly. And it was so funny how we met each other at the Circa and just hit it off. And we were sharing office space, and you were working and we were working. And, the events, we got into town. We were there for I think a little over a week. I think I got in on Monday and left on a Monday, and one event better than the next. We had some great networking events. The food was out of this world. A lot of different, just host events, and just pairing the wines with the foods, and that's kind of my sweet spot. I just love events that are more upscaled, past hors d'oeuvres. That's, to me, a fluid, moving around party. And a lot of the parties that we were at and hosted, that's what they were. So, and to me, that's the greatest thing, is you get everybody around, moving, eating, talking, networking, and kind of like we did, and it's it's such a blessing and such an honor. And Las Vegas hosted an unbelievable event this year. And this was my 15th consecutive Super Bowl, more than Tom Brady has now. So, but it was definitely fruitful for sure.
Was it your favorite Super Bowl?
I don't know if it was my favorite. Believe it or not, the New York, I did the commissioner's dinner. We were involved with that dinner in New York. That was a really great Super Bowl. Again, it was in my backyard, so there was a lot of perks to it being here in New York. But I tell you, it might have been up. It definitely was up there. And it was weird because all of us kept saying, I'm not sure how Vegas is going to handle a Super Bowl with all the other things. I mean, there had to been thousands of activations a night while we were there, So for Vegas to shine like it did, especially right after Formula One too, it was they did. And other than the weather being a little cold and wet in Vegas, which is kind of weird, you couldn't have asked for a better week.
Yeah, they really, really outdid themselves. I was very impressed, and it was just a load of fun. Met some incredible people with incredible stories. So it was very exciting. And then we had that exciting game to go along with it. And even though I was rooting for the 49ers, I wasn't disappointed.
Don't bet against Pat Mahomes. That's the do not bet against
Exactly.
Pat Mahomes. You can't do it. Can't do
Exactly.
it.
And nail biting all the way till the end. It was a great game. And I'm not mad at Kansas City because they played their
They
game and it
deserved
was
it.
it was excellent. And I nobody could throw a rock at my 49ers either because they played their game. It was just a great game. The halftime show was just
Yeah.
off the charts. And
Butcher nailed it. Yeah.
yeah, it was really, really good. So
I have to give a shout out. We saw the Jason Derulo concert the night
okay.
before, and
Uh-huh.
it was cold and wet and raining, and it
Yes.
was like in this outdoorish, indoorish warehouse type thing. There were less
Uh-huh.
than 250 people at this event by the end, and
Wow.
it was out of this world. Out of this world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. I
Yeah.
mean, really some good events happening that week and just a lot of fun going on. Now, one of the things that was going on was a lot of food, and that is exactly what you do. And so let's shift gears and talk a little bit about food. And I'm going to throw a little bit of a rivalry in there because you have eaten food and prepared food from all over the world. East Coast, West Coast, who has the healthiest food?
So the first filming that I did when I first started 15 years ago, we did a couple of episodes of a show called Coast to Coast Cuisine, and
Uh-huh.
it was me. It was me, a restaurant chef from New York, and my best friend, Chef JR, who was a private chef out in California, and
Hmm.
he went to the number 2 culinary school, the CIA Culinary Institute, and I went to the number 1 school, Johnson and Wales. And him and I have nothing in common, and we always noticed that whenever we cooked, we always prepared totally different meals. And the West Coast definitely prepares more healthy meals. I believe it's the same as the islands. You know, you get that
Yes.
same fruit based, vegetable based, seafood based for the most
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
I don't want to generalize, but for the most part. But yeah, I would say that the food experience overall on the West Coast is probably healthier than the food experience in Little Italy or whatever place you want me to take you to in New York City, you know. So again, I don't want to piss off any restaurant owners in New York that are going to, we have the healthiest. Okay, simmer down there, chef, you know. But for the most part, I would definitely think that the West Coast and down into the islands is healthier than the East Coast into New York and Boston in particular. So,
Okay, excellent. And Boston is where I went to medical school in the land of Boston baked beans. But really, what I remember Boston for as far as food was the lobsters, because you could get lobster anywhere in Boston. And I would always come back to the West Coast carrying my box of lobsters on ice. And about halfway through the flight, they'd all start to come off of their dormancy because while they're on the ice, they're quiet and they're basically napping. But once they start to warm up, the boxes would start to rock and roll, and you'd see people sitting around me. The eyes pop. What the heck has she got in that box? As they
right,
started fighting.
right.
But yeah, I missed that lobster experience on the East Coast there.
Oh, yeah.
So we've jumped into this a little bit out of sequence because this is a recording of this show that will go live, but because we had a little technical difficulty earlier, we did have to refilm some of the sequencing. I'm actually happy that we did because it'll give me an opportunity to allow Chef Eddie to really tell us more about his background and again how he started and where he trained and what led him into this culinary experience that he's journeying on.
Yeah, I mean, started in the kitchen with my mom and my grandmother, you know, 6 years old, 7 years old, standing on the stool in the kitchen, watching them cook, and helping where I could. And that led into when I was 13, my buddies were all older than me. They worked in an Italian restaurant in New York, and they, wanted me to work there with them. A dishwasher position opened, and my folks said, "Yeah, if you don't have school the next day, you can work the night prior." So, what started as a summer gig has gone on a long time since I was 13 years old, and I've owned 5 restaurants, and about 15 years ago, I got involved with the Food Network, and subsequently got involved with the NFL almost immediately, 3 months, 4 months after that. And here we are. Amazing that my summer job is still going on, and always traveling, and I get called for the most amazing events, and it's an honor. I think if there's an event going on that a private chef is needed in a city and at a Super Bowl. This was my 15th Super Bowl, like I said. They call me. Somehow it trickles down into me. Whether it's a Snoop Dogg event or a Jamie Foxx event or whoever we've got, Warren Moon or Shannon Sharp or whoever. So I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed. I always try to give back because I think that's one of the things. Karma has a way of coming back around the corner to get you. So
Yes, it does.
I think yeah, and you know what? You want to save some ringside seats when this game is over. You want to make sure you get into the right door, and maybe this is the way of somewhat getting redemption to help me, because chefs are
Right.
I don't want to say we're evil by nature, but we're challenged by nature, I guess, is the easier way. So,
Well, at
but
the end of the day, you want to make sure that you end up in the right arena. Okay.
that's correct. Correct. I might not get ringside seats, but at least get me into the right arena. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's say, for example, that we had someone who was lactose intolerant, but so many of the dishes have cream sauces. How do you work around that?
Well, it depends the menu item that you're using, but there's so many, and this is another thing too that I talked about in my cookbook is it's not so much the recipe, it's the technique, right?
Right.
So a lot of times if you take a tuna I can make it ceviche, I can make it pan seared, I can make it oven roasted, I can make it grilled. There are so many different options, and I think now, so more than ever, you can get around almost every single allergy, because now
Right.
there was no allergies 40 years ago. Now
Right.
everybody's got an allergy of something, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
seafood, celiac, gluten,
Yes.
whatever, what nut allergies. So there are so many different ways with different cooking techniques to get out of the, sauce on the side is an easy one. No sauce on
Right.
whatever. We're doing a salmon. Hey, most people that are stomach sensitive to some degree or have some kind of allergy, they even know the way around it. Can we just have no sauce? Can I get lemon on the side or something if it's
Right.
seafood? So
Right.
there are so many ways around it these days that most chefs are prepared for. We have the option, even as simple as when you have a dairy allergy, which is common, instead of us doing a saute of broccoli in a garlic butter sauce, just steam it, bam,
Mm-hmm.
nice and easy, bam, onto the plate, out the door. We didn't even miss a step on the line, So
Right.
there are so many different options now for when you do menu creation, I guess,
Uh-huh.
to get yourself around those allergies or whatever it is. It's a lot. Sometimes it's even dietary. So
Right.
somebody
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
want gluten, somebody doesn't want whatever. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, I mean, one of the things that used to be an issue, I'm pescatarian, so I don't eat meat, and it's not because it's a fad kind of thing. It really messes with my stomach, always has. So I pretty much avoid meat. And a lot of times in the past, even the vegetables were prepared with meat. Now that's not so much the case. I'm finding that pretty much everywhere I go, any vegetables that are prepared, they usually are not prepared with meat. What other changes have you seen in terms of healthy food and consciousness about allergies? What other changes have you seen over the years? Because you've been there for a while, and just like everything else, the way people are eating has changed in terms of preferences, and some things come and go, are fads. But I think because of everything that's going on, like you said, the allergies, our environment's so toxic now and people's immune systems are so hypersensitive that we are seeing these progressive changes occurring. What are some of the changes you've seen and how do you accommodate for those?
Well, it's again funny that you say it, but I've owned three steakhouses.
Mm-hmm.
So my last one was up in Harlem, which was one of my favorite. It was a filming studio slash tapas steakhouse, I called it.
Oh,
And
nice.
I remember this one night I had these four vegans come in, and they
Uh-huh.
wanted me to do a vegan tasting. And I nailed it. I knocked it out of the park. But it's
Wow.
weird because over the years, there have been so many food trends that change.
Mm,
Just think like
yeah.
20 years ago, you would never have put a blend in a bottle. You would either have
Right.
straight cab, straight zin. Now you have blends that have 7 different varietal grapes. If you had told somebody that
Yes.
25, 30 years ago, they would have been like, yeah, out your mind.
Their hair
And
would
then
have
it was
stood
the
up.
same thing. Right. But then you also had years that steak was, everybody was doing the Atkins diet. Nobody,
Right.
Atkins, meat only. Then you
Right.
get the next, and it was everybody was doing the pasta diet or the bread diet. So I think you go through these 7 or 8 year cycles I've noticed over the years. But with that being said, to me, the pescatarian diet, I think it's the most common that I see.
Hmm.
Again, I'm out in Montauk, New York, which is a seafood capital of the world. So it's
Right.
kind of easy to make everything seafood. That's all I eat during the summer.
Yes.
But with that being said, I think you're seeing people wanting to know where their fish is sourced from, I know for me, if I'm on Long Island, if I'm out in Montauk, I'm only eating seafood. I'm not eating beef out there. I'm not eating chicken out there. I'm not eating pork out there. If I'm in
Right.
Texas, I'm eating barbecue. I don't eat barbecue in New York. I eat barbecue in Texas.
Right.
If you're in the middle of the country, you're eating, you're not eating seafood. You're eating beef for the most part.
Right.
Same thing if you're on the West Coast, you're eating more healthy, citrus based, fruit based, vegetable based foods. So to me, it's a little bit of regional. Same thing with Europe when you're on the coast in Europe, anywhere or whatnot. So to me, I think it has to do with regionality. Again, my show
Yes.
Locavore to
I
be a
like
whole,
that. I
but
really like that.
yeah, it's all about locally sourced. And the coolest thing is we fly into an area and we learn about what's locally sourced, and then I put my
Right.
spin on it.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love the seafood component to, because pretty much that's the world food. We're surrounded by oceans, groupers in every water in
Hmm.
the world, groupers in all waters. But I
Right.
love seeing new fish, kingfish down in the islands, barracuda. We don't have barracuda here. Our tuna, cold water tuna is so much better than warm water tuna.
Yes.
Sorry to
And
anybody that not.
I am in love with parrotfish.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't usually see it here in the United States, but
yeah.
I've come
I
across an
had it the other day.
international market that has
Yeah.
parrotfish. I am in love with
Oh yeah,
parrotfish.
I had it the other day in the Bahamas, and it was awesome.
Uh-huh.
We had conch, conchs in our
Oh
water too.
gosh, I
But
absolutely love conch.
me too. And we added conch salad, conch fritters. We added in
Uh-huh.
it was almost like a fish and chip they made with
Right.
I was just telling this story tonight. So to me, it's all regionally sourced food. And then, like you said, I think if you ask, I'll bet you that pescatarian is probably one of the biggest diet trends or food trends, if you will. And
Hmm.
I love it as well. Don't get me wrong, I
Hmm.
don't mind a steak every once in a while, but
Yes, yes. And
everything in moderation.
yes, and I mean, I love what you say about locally sourced because that is one of the things I say. People talk about organic. And that's really cool, but it's hard to get anything that is really organic, even if it's coming off of an organic farm and they're not using pesticides. You know, it rains on the farms and the pesticides are being picked up in the rain, and the rain is indiscriminate as to where it dumps it. You know, pesticides are being leached into the soil, various other things are being leached into the soil. So it's very hard to get truly organic. It's nice if you can get it, great, but you know, even truly organic is not pure. What I think is more important than organic is, as you said, locally and regionally sourced. And the reason for that is because when things are being shipped all over the world, they're having, if they're produce, they're having to be picked early before they're ripe, and then they're put into shipping containers, and then they're sprayed to ripen them, and it's artificial. They never ripen naturally, and so they don't reach their fullest nutrient content. And then the other part of it is, now, again, I'm pescatarian and I don't eat meat preferentially because of GI issues. But if I'm in the middle of the country in Texas, I'm a little bit reticent about eating fish. Why? Because it's being shipped from somewhere else. And even if they say it's the fresh catch of the day, chances are it's been sitting a while. And one thing that you don't want is fish that's been sitting for too long, for lots of reasons. One, because it can actually cause you to be sick. Two, because it loses flavor quickly as the amines or the ammonia builds up in the fish. So your richest food sources come from the regional areas. That I always say, eat as close to the ground as you can. The closer you get to them picking it, or the closer you get to them harvesting the meat, the fresher it is, the better it is for you. Now, I have a meat question. This is taking another turn, just because I'm curious about it. I grew up out of country. My father was in the military, and when I was a young thing, I was in Izmir, Turkey. And so we ate filet mignon a lot. One of the things that I've noticed, because for a while here in the US, filet mignon was a top cut, and if you were going to have a steak in a fine restaurant, you were going to get a filet mignon. But I don't see that as often now. What has changed with that? And then the other meat question I have is that everybody talks about the Kobe beef. And I took my father out to a restaurant here in Sacramento, and, I got him dinner with the Kobe beef. And that was when I learned that there are two types of Kobe beef: the American Kobe beef, or I think it might even be called California Kobe beef, and the true Japanese Kobe beef. And so while the dinner was flavorful, Dad did not finish his dinner because he got tired of chewing. It was really, really stringy and tough. And I did taste it. Again, the flavor was great, but it was like chewing shoe leather. So can you talk to us about meat choices there?
Well, I'll answer the filet mignon one first, only
Okay.
because filet will probably always be the most desirable and most expensive cut of
Mm-hmm.
meat. The thing that you're seeing probably over the course of the last 20 to 30 years is that every part of a cattle is being used now. Terrace
Right.
major, which I'm not sure if you've heard of, but there are so many little parts that they either ground for chopped meat
Mm-hmm.
or cut and find. Like tri-tip was a steak that really wasn't around back 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
And now, so now every part of the beef of the cattle itself is being used for is edible. I
Uh-huh.
mean, we're even using bone marrow, for goodness sake. So
Right.
so so filet will always be dollar for dollar when you break domestic regular, either Black Angus or regular cow
Mm-hmm.
down. Filet mignon, that tender loin is less fatty, usually a greater, it's extremely tender, and it's incredible. It's a great tasting piece of meat, especially if cooked right.
Right.
But to me, filet mignon will always be the top of the top. But with
Okay.
that being said, short rib, you take that short rib and you braise it in Cabernet for, 5, 6, 8 hours, 12 hours, and let that thing break down. There's not a more tender piece of meat. That ribeye is another one. The New York shell steak, the short rib, and where from the short loin comes the porterhouse and the T-bone. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, when you have all of these primal cuts, filet mignon is always going to be the creme of the creme. With you eating a piece of Kobe beef that wasn't good, that wasn't prepared right. So
Okay.
Kobe beef adds enough fat ratio in it where if it's cooked perfectly, not well done, well prepared
Right.
right, that should not be stringy. You should put it on your tongue. You should taste what the cattle ate, and it
Mm-hmm.
should melt in your mouth. With that
Okay.
being said, I work with a company out of North Carolina called Wilders, and Wilders does a Wagyu beef, and
Ah,
their
yes.
cattle is probably one of the best meats I've ever eaten. Even as a steakhouse owner, I've owned 3 steakhouses, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
To me, you can't eat steak often.
Right.
Once a week, maybe every other week, better. Maybe once a month these days is what I want. So I think you got to be very careful with the cholesterol and all that stuff. But then again, you
Yes.
look at the Atkins diet, like we talked about, or even
Mm-hmm.
keto.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's doing this keto, which to me is a modified Atkins diet, but it's
Right.
all meat based, So, but
Yes.
they're to me a great chicken, a great lamb, some of these other pork I even love. So there are
Mm-hmm.
so many great food choices, but to do it like we talked about, locally sourced, to
Right.
know where it comes from, But on that one that your dad ate, I'm going to say that wasn't prepared correctly. That's the word I
Okay.
use.
All
So
right.
that
It's
just, again, I didn't see it. I don't know. It's hard to tell when you don't. I'd have to
yeah.
see it, but
I
that's
think
I'm gonna
it's
put.
pretty safe to say that it wasn't prepared correctly because even lesser cuts of meat really shouldn't have been that tough. It was like chewing
No,
shoe leather. It was very flavorful, but boy, your jaw was sore when you finished eating it. So,
and they're nutty about that Kobe beef too. Like they're very
yes,
proprietary. Yeah, very. They're very protective of that brand. Very
yes,
proprietary. Yeah, they want to get that
yes.
right. So.
Yeah, and I was so disappointed because it was my birthday, but I really wanted to do this special thing for Dad, and so I was like, oh, so I owe him a good Kobe beef next time.
Yeah, yeah. If you can find Wagyu, true too. Try a Wagyu or a good. To me, in America, Black Angus steak, you can't go wrong with the
Hmm.
prime Black Angus steak. You can't go wrong with it. And
Right.
any prime ribeye, porterhouse, you name it. And it's if you got a good chef in there and it's purchased correctly and stored correctly and aged correctly, there's nothing better.
Right, right. And as you're talking about the Black Angus steaks, and you asked me about the Terrace Major and the whole bit, it made me smile because I actually, prior to deciding to go into medicine, in school, I was an animal science and wildlife and fisheries biology major. So we had to learn about all of that and how the meat and all was processed and all of the different types of cattle, whether they were Black Angus or Herefords or whatever, the case may be, and even the types of meat that came off of, each one and why different ones were preferred. So that took me back a long way.
Well, you just took me back to culinary school where because in my steakhouses, we cut down meat, but we didn't
Right.
cut down, a half of a cow. Where in
Right.
culinary school in our butchery classes, we got a half cow delivered and had to break
Yes.
the cow down, So you just brought me back to culinary school. So
Yes. Yes.
welcome back to culinary school.
So those are kind of fun memories. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about fruits and vegetables. When you're preparing dishes, how do you decide what fruits and vegetables that you are going to put together to bring the flavors together the most? And a lot of people, they don't cook. They're afraid of cooking because they're afraid of doing something wrong. And for me, cooking is like art. You can't get it completely wrong, and if you do get it completely wrong, well, it's a learning experience, and the next time you paint, you won't paint it quite the same way.
Right.
So what are some of the things that you've paired that are your absolute best flavors, and what are some of, I mean, even chefs make mistakes, people. Even the best of chefs put together some things that just don't work. What were some of those disasters that didn't work for you?
We don't make mistakes. No, it's always a learn. You know what? I learn this often in life that you always have to be learning. And
Yes.
that's the biggest thing. But one of the things, like you said, it's like an art. But you
Hmm.
eat with your eyes, right?
Yes.
So to me, like if I'm preparing a scallop dish, and I
Hmm.
was thinking this tonight, and I wanted to do just say a blue cheese dressing with it, right?
Hmm.
Like a blue cheese cream sauce or something, white and white, right? So on the
Hmm.
plate. So I would maybe blacken or pan sear or something where you bring in another color. So a lot of times
Right.
what I'll do is if I'm doing like a medley of vegetables, like like a ceviche is a perfect
Hmm.
example, right? So if I'm doing a shrimp and mahi ceviche, let's say, I'll use like a yellow pepper, green pepper, red pepper. My mouth is watering. And a red pepper, maybe a little tomato in there and cucumber, right? So and then the citrus, like hit a little bit of use some orange citrus, some lime, some lemon in there. So when you look at it, you see all these different colors and all that stuff. I just did the
Right.
boat show, and ceviche was one of the ones I did, and I did it breaking down a whole bunch of multicolored peppers in there, and like just looking at it, it was like, oh my god, that tastes incredible. So when you use
Right.
that, that's half the game is the color mixture. So I usually, believe it or not, start with the color of what this plate is going to look like. Like I'll never put something yellow with yellow or brown with brown or whatever. I'll
Right.
always do like different colors to try to mix and match on the plate. And then it becomes the next thing is kind of like the crunch, because you want different textures. You want a little bit of a bite here, and then it comes into now let me build the flavor profiles in. So if I was going to do like a I don't know, like a blue cheese beurre blanc on that scallop, like stuffed
Hmm.
mussels or something like that, or
Hmm.
mushroom. I might hit it with some Cajun dust, like get a little red in there, So
Hmm.
try to pick that up.
Right.
And so what I try to do is think with the eyes first, and then I go with the textures second, and then I try to build the flavor profile in after, whether it's a sweet flavor, like dropping a mango into
Hmm.
the ceviche. So you got a little bit of heat in there, and then you got a little bit of sweet in there. I
Hmm.
love cooking with like a honey, soy, sriracha, maple syrup, and then I did a for Shannon Sharp with his cognac. And I think we talked about this. And then we
Hmm.
did it like I did this reduction, and it came out to this.
Yes.
Oh my God, it was out of this world. So like a lot, and Shannon Sharp was pissed that I made a steak au poivre using his cognac. But
Hmm.
so what you do is you try to build, like I said, I think I start with the visual first, and then I go into texture maybe second, and then the flavor profile third, because that's kind of easy because you can build in the sweet, the heat, whatever you need to do, you can kind of move around, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
hopefully,
And
did that answer the question? I feel
yes,
like I went off the rails.
it actually, we kind of went all around the world, but you did answer the question. You actually answered some other questions that I was getting ready to ask, and you made a point that I like to bring when it comes to foods, and particularly when we talk about fruits and vegetables. One of the things that I say is eat from the rainbow. And, visually, when chefs do this and they're putting together different color fruits and vegetables and such, what they're doing is creating a healthier nutrient source, because all of those fruits and vegetables, they are the only way that you can get antioxidants in your diet. And antioxidants are super important in protecting us from inflammation and from what's called free radical damage. I mean, think about someone running up and stabbing all of your cells with knives. That's what free radicals do. And antioxidants are the shields that protect your cells from the knives. And when chefs are putting together all of these flavors and colors, those colors are representative of different antioxidants when they're in the fruits and vegetables. And the other thing that you were saying was in terms of the flavor profiles, adding these colors in, the visual perception of food. When we think about food, we think about it in terms of taste and our taste buds. But you have to remember that the actual sensation of eating and the flavors that we get from eating, the satisfaction that we get from eating, is not a singular sensory experience. It is not just about the taste buds. One of the things that you as a chef, I'm sure, have to think about is, what is this food aroma going to be? Different aromas create different sensations of taste. And that visual, I mean, we don't think about visual being connected to palate, but you can prepare the same meal and slop it on a plate. And this has actually been scientifically shown. They've done research that showed this. You can use the same ingredients, slop it on a plate, or you can have it nicely prepared and arranged so that it creates a beautiful visual plate. And what happens is that the perception is that the food that's slopped on the plate does not taste as good, even though they're the exact same ingredients, the exact same preparation, but the presentation being different, the eye tells us that that food does not taste good.
Oh yeah,
So,
without a doubt. Now I'm going to answer your next question. So I've been involved with the St. Lucia Food and Wine Festival, St. John Food and Wine Festival, Jamaica Taste of Cayman, the Bahamas. So all of these different food and wine festivals with different seafood and different vegetables and whatnot, and that's probably my favorite area of the world to prepare food from, because you do get all of these colors of the rainbow and you do get all this fresh seafood and all of that. So to me, it's so bountiful down in the islands of, we're so fortunate to be 3 hours away from, some of the best eating in the world, especially as a chef. It's like, oh my God, the foods that you get to choose from, the parrotfish, the red snapper down there, the kingfish that's down there. And on top of it, then you get the pineapple and the mangoes
mango.
and coconut. So, and
Yes. And
all of these.
I tell you what, mango in the islands is so different than that stuff that you get on the shelves in the supermarket. If you've never had them outside of the United States, outside of the supermarket, you have never had a mango.
And Grand Cayman has 8 different varietal types of mangoes.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things the locals do, which I did on Wednesday in a week ago in wherever I was, Bahamas, is they eat the mango in the ocean. So when sunrise, you go to the ocean. Hopefully, I'm telling a secret, but the locals eat it and dunk it right into the ocean. So you get the sweetness from the
For the
mango,
salt.
salt from the sea. It is,
Yes.
I don't want to say an orgasmic experience, but it's damn near close as you can get. That's the darn sure. If you got to edit that, I understand. But it and they were like, you got to do this, do it at sunrise. And I brought my folks down, and I was like, you got to try this thing out, So
Right.
so
Right.
it's little stuff like that. But then you wonder why, people in America live till 70, 75, and people in the islands, everybody's 90 plus years old down there.
Right. Right.
Well, but they're
And 90 and healthy. They're 90
right,
and fit.
right, right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's all about food choices now, isn't it?
Right, right. And then, so many people believe that they cannot eat healthy and still have good food choices that are tasty. And we have places like the islands in Southeast Asia and, all of these different places that are using all of these different flavors and spices and all. And the food is absolutely delicious. As you said, it's practically orgasmic experiences. And yet still they are fit and healthy. You see 90-year-olds running around that are healthier than our 20-year-olds. So, food is what you make it. And you can have very healthy, extremely flavorful choices. And part of having those is being able to think outside of your box and take the risk of trying something different. Now, what is your most difficult food to prepare to make it taste like something? What is something that the
Well,
basic thing you started out with was just, I don't know if I can do anything with this, and you've made it fabulous?
I just want to go back for a second because you've said it twice and I didn't address it. But I tell everybody everywhere I go, no matter what, if you're cooking just for yourself, you're not
Mm-hmm.
selling it or cooking it for whoever. Experiment with new things. Go to Whole Foods. Go buy a fish you've never seen or played with before. Go buy a fruit or vegetable and try to come up with something. I'm sure it's going to taste fantastic. It might not look good, but if you mess it up somehow. So, but I say that all the time to try new stuff that you've never. But I got to be honest with you, and we're kind of fortunate because the way that when I do travel and cooking, and again, 15 years of the travel culinary part of what I've been doing is usually I'll taste something prior. So the
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge I have is if I'm given something and somebody says, here, make something of this, well,
Right.
I'd love to see what the taste profile is of this,
Yes.
and a perfect one when we filmed in Haiti at the Haiti Food and Wine Festival. I failed to mention that one, but the John mushroom that's down there,
Uh-huh.
and
Mm-hmm.
that mushroom I had never seen before, I had never cooked with before, and I wanted to eat it in a restaurant to try to see how everybody. Let me see how you guys prepare this and see what it's like.
Right.
So a lot of times the only challenge if I got one shot at it, then I'll try to figure it out because,
Mm-hmm.
and I know this, I don't want to make this simplistic or whatever, but a lot of times if you have a white fish, like a striped bass in New
Mm-hmm.
York, that striped bass is going to eat similar to like a Chilean sea bass. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
eat similar to a kingfish down in the islands. It's going
Right.
to, preparing it wise, it's a sturdy white fish that you can pan sear. You can throw it on a grill,
Yes.
it's not going to stick, so, and then you get some flaky fishes like the fluke here or the parrotfish down in the islands,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so it's a matter of once you have the technique, like we talked about earlier, it can resonate with other brands of fish, if you will. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times I just need to know what does that thing taste like? What's it supposed to taste like? And then, okay, let's go get it,
Mm-hmm.
So if that,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that answered that question. So,
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Now, you're traveling all over the world looking at these different locally sourced foods, and I grew up out of country, and so I saw some different cooking techniques and stuff. And there were some things that were being done in other countries that added both flavor to the food, but again, added nutrients to the food. One of the things that I liked in terms of flavor was rice being cooked in bamboo. And in terms of adding nutrients to the food that was cooked and wrapped in the banana leaves and then steamed into the banana leaves. And so you receive the richness and the flavor from the banana leaves, but it also imparted nutrients. What were some of the things that you've seen in the various different locations that you've traveled to that you would say were both healthier ways of preparing food, or that they were ways of adding nutrients to the food while adding flavors?
Well, while you were saying it, I thought of two different things. We were in Italy filming over there, and we made a pesto where we literally took the blender, went into the garden, and started picking like the basil and picking the garlic out of picking the olives from the trees and grabbing the olive oil that was just pressed. So, and then made this pesto out of that. But the one thing that sticks in my mind too is we were down in Belize, and we had they took the spiny lobster, they deshelled the tail, and they wrapped it in banana leaves and they steamed it. And then they took rice and they used coconut milk in the rice, and this pepper, this very, very peppery. And it was the wildest thing that this concoction came up when we were done with it, and it was, I can still taste it in my mouth, and it's stuff like that that I love. That's one of the reasons I want to spend, like, I would love to go to Asia for a good 3 months and really get into the culture of seeing how their meals are prepared as well. But I think when you start seeing stuff like that, and then again, it's learning, but it's also learning. I could do that with the Chilean sea bass. I can do that with I can do that with scallops. I can do that. You can use other stuff, So that's, I think, one of the things where, again, it comes back to technique, that you can really learn a lot, I guess, and eat good.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a tip for our viewers in terms of things not to do? If you avoid these things, then you're going to be fairly safe in food prepping and coming up with some flavorful combinations. What things should we not put together?
Well, here's one that you should, again, it goes, I always say the color on the plate is like a big one, that's, you can't have like all the same colors on the plate. So I'm really big at that. But the one thing that I thought of when every restaurant that I purchased had a microwave in it. And I used to have this throwing away the microwave ceremony where everybody would come in, and we would have like this lifting it and taking it, and everybody would take it to the garbage and get rid of the microwave. So to me, you should never use a microwave ever. There's no need to ever use a microwave in your life. Anything that brings food to 150 degrees in less than 10 seconds, that food, there's something wrong going on there. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you not to unplug the machine and throw that machine in the garbage. So that would be, if I was telling your people what to, anybody that's listening with that would be my tip. But again, just, it's just, to me, experiment, go grab a fish you've never seen before. Go to a dock somewhere where they just caught fish, just came in on a boat, and you've never seen that fish. Monkfish is a perfect example. Monkfish is in our waters here, and they call it the lazy man or poor man's lobster, they call it. But when you see this, he's an ugly fish. When you see him on a dock, he's Google monkfish and take a look at that guy. And when you eat them, it's incredible. Pan sear it, and then finish it off in the oven. Make a nice little healthy sauce with it. A citrus beurre blanc is perfect for that. And so to me, it's experiment, try new things you've never played with before. You go into rhubarb is another
Oh, I
perfect
love
example.
rhubarb. I love rhubarb.
What do you do? But a lot of people are afraid of it. Go get
Hmm.
it. Go cook
Hmm.
it a little. To saute it.
Hmm.
Blanch it in something.
Hmm.
Treat it like broccoli. Treat it like asparagus. So to me, it's about trying stuff, experimenting, especially if you're cooking for you and your wife or your husband or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Your family. Put it together. Go figure it out. Make the plate
Hmm.
look good and the worst thing it's gonna taste good. It might not look good, but
Right.
try to figure it out. And then once you get those techniques down, pan searing, sautéing, whatever it is, you can apply it to other proteins.
Hmm. Absolutely. How do you feel about durian?
It's weird. It was where did I cook it last? It's to me, I love all fish. I haven't met a fish I haven't liked. So um it's got a lot of the qualities of our flounder here.
Hmm.
Uh, but even like we were in Spain with sardines, and they
Hmm.
had so many different
Yeah.
varieties of sardines,
Hmm.
and it's just to me, go somewhere, see what the local stuff is, and get it. If you're, I know you're a
Yeah.
pescatarian, but if you're down, in Texas or in the middle of the country in Vegas, get something locally sourced.
Hmm.
Here's a good one. We had a shrimp sponsor at the Las Vegas Food and Wine Festival,
Uh-huh.
and the kitchen was packed with the Bobby Flays and the Guy Fieri's and all the whatever's in the kitchen, and I couldn't get in the kitchen. I couldn't schedule kitchen time.
Uh-huh.
So shrimp was one of the things that was a sponsor or whatever. Shrimp was around, so they were like
Yes.
something with shrimp. So I was standing outside and I saw some workers in the field, and I was like, "Do you know what they're picking?" And the guy was like, "I have no idea." So I walked over. My Spanish came in handy, my kitchen Spanish, and my 8 years of studying Spanish. They were actually cooking paddle. They were harvesting paddle cactus. So
Uh-huh.
I took the paddle cactus. The guy gave me a case. Because he loved my Spanish, gave
Yeah.
me a caja of paddle cactus, and I
Yes.
had a bunch of interns. We cleaned up the cactus. I wound up grilling it. I did a cactus and shrimp ceviche
Oh,
that
that
people
sounds
at
heavenly.
the Las Vegas Food and Wine Festival that people were losing their minds over. So it's stuff like that. Like think outside. I always try to come up with a new menu item that nobody's ever done before. And then I
Yes.
Google it. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't come up, then I'm like, bam, I got a new one here.
Uh-huh.
So another one, I did the Santa Monica Food and Wine Festival. And I was trying to figure out something cool to come up with. And I thought of a grape and scallop ceviche. So I took
Okay.
the grape and I sliced the grape nice and thin. I got like 5 cuts out of a grape and
Uh-huh.
I marinated it with the scallop. I sliced the scallop down. Do you know that the scallop got stained? It looked like rainbows on the scallop from the grapes,
Oh,
from the different grapes. And everybody was like, this is
yeah.
the coolest thing. And I had no idea that was going to happen, but I was like, oh yeah, I practiced that. I knew that was going to happen. So,
Right.
it's thinking outside the box. It's coming up with new, different, creative ideas. It's learning techniques and then applying different stuff. So
Okay, now let's talk about bitters because in the US, culturally, we don't do a whole lot with bitter foods, bitter melon or um, bitter greens, things of that nature. What do you
yeah,
do with bitters in order to make them more palatable to the American taste bud?
don't tell anybody this, but I'll tell
Okay.
you this. But a lot of times, what I do if I'm cooking anything that's bitter or cook with bitters, a lot
Hmm.
of times, and you'll love this, is citrus actually is a great like in the middle there because
Yeah.
for some reason bitter and citrus it's like sweet and sweet,
Hmm.
hot and sweet. It's
Yes.
to me, it's almost that same peanut butter and jelly-ish type thing. It
Yes.
shouldn't go together, but at the end of the day, like if you do something with like a pan-seared salmon, let's say, you do a pan-seared salmon and you deglaze the pan with some bitters and then
Mm-hmm.
citrus, maybe even a little white wine in there too, and then
Mm-hmm.
create a pan sauce out of that with the fond, they call it at the bottom. Um, to me, there's nothing like it. So a
Right.
lot of times anything bitter you can counter, you try to find the other side of it. Citrus is a great one. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things that I've found is, and I use a lot of citrus, even more than I used to. Um, for those who have diets that are low salt, as Chef Eddie said, he doesn't even use much salt because there are so many other flavorful things you can season with. But for those who are really on strict low salt diets and they still want to stimulate those taste buds that the salt is responding to, the citrus really does a good job with that. And one of the things that I've been doing recently is, we all do the little squeeze of lemon or squeeze of lime in here or there. And what I've been doing recently is actually using the entire fruit, slicing it and making sure that I'm keeping the rind on the fruit, because sauteed, once you saute that up, it caramelizes and it is just amazing. It adds amazing flavor. It adds some texture, and it even adds that extra pop of color. So I've been using citrus in that way a lot more frequently now than I ever did.
I do the same thing. If I'm making a scampi, I'll squeeze the lemon in and drop the whole lemon in there, do it for
Mm-hmm.
the whole saute. And then
Mm-hmm.
what I'll do is I'll take the tongs, pick up that citrus, and because you've cooked it in there, now it's this soft, gooey, it's like soft.
Mm-hmm.
It's still, you're not going to lose any parts of it, but you
Yes.
just squeeze that in there and you got all the citruses out of that. There's
Yes.
no better way to get the citrus out of a thing than sauteing it for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether
And I mean, those oils that are in the rind, that
yep,
limonene and all of those oils that are in the rind are so healthy for you. So that's, an
yeah,
absolutely wonderful way of increasing the nutrient value of your food. So,
absolutely.
if you had just one tip that you wanted them to take away as their healthy eating tip when they're dining out, what would that be?
Uh, See, I was thinking this. Here's another little technique that I love, and not a lot of places utilize it. What you'll get is you'll get somebody that'll take restaurants. If you order broccoli in a restaurant, there's a
Mm-hmm.
really good chance, and I'm not going to say this about every restaurant, so nobody freak out here, but they'll take the broccoli or cauliflower or whatever, they'll boil it and then they'll chill it and it'll be on hold in your mise en place ready for saute, right? So,
Uh-huh.
because if during your night you need it, you take it and bam, and then you just do it a quick saute and out. About a lot of years ago, I came up with this idea because I was like, well, look at the water that you just boiled that in, all the
Yes.
nutrients, they're gone. So I
Yes.
thought, why not incorporate saute into your boil or into your,
Yes.
it would be, would that be braising maybe? Yeah, maybe. Either
Mm.
way, poaching, I guess would be the word.
Yes. Hmm.
So I start like, just say I have broccoli in the dish. Let's just say
Hmm.
broccoli's alone, just to make it easy.
Right.
A little bit of oil in the pan, garlic in the pan, and enough water to evaporate or cook out by the time the meal is done, by the time the
Hmm.
saute is done. So
Hmm.
all of your nutrients stay inside of that saute. And I do it
Yes.
all the time. It's a little more challenging in a restaurant. And a lot of times, thank God I'm the boss, so I can make that call. But
Hmm.
it's a little nerve wracking if you get a lot of broccoli all at the same time. Broccoli
Right.
orders across the board because it's a little more time consuming because you're
Right.
taking it from raw to the plate. But I
Yes.
like it better because you're keeping the nutrients and it's a la minute, to the minute.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so to me, that's one of my favorite tips, techniques, if you will,
Mhm.
for healthy eating if I'm cooking or you're cooking it yourself. So, because like I said, a lot of times if you're eating that in a restaurant, that broccoli has been pre-cooked, pre-boiled, all of your nutrients are out, and now you have this beautiful green broccoli with 90% of the nutrients that you just flush down the sink, So, but
Exactly.
to me, I think, and it's the way I eat when I go out, especially if I'm out with somebody, is I will split a meal. Split order
Yes.
instead of all of this food. Order an appetizer, split the appetizer. Order a salad, second course, split the salad. Order an entree, prime rib, third course, split the prime rib. Order a dessert, split it in half, and then you've eaten half of the amount, and you're not loaded up on fatness and disgustingness.
Absolutely. Abs- Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
weird. Now I'm looking for the first time at my silhouette, and this is kind of going to look like, because you're all like bright in the background. Mine looks like I'm hiding in a closet in the kitchen or something. I'm hidden away in the back here. So
See, but we see you.
yeah,
That's
it's my
what's
silhouette.
important.
You can see. Yeah.
That is what's important. So, Eddie, it has been absolutely fun having you on, and
Thank
I
you.
hope to have you on again, and we'll talk more food because people love to talk food. And the next time I bring you on, I'd actually like to have you prepare a simple meal that our audience can follow along with, and take it as one of those easy meal prep tips that's going to be both delicious and healthy, because there are a lot of people that swear out that they absolutely cannot cook, but I'm sure following your direction, even my dogs would make great chefs.
They would. The other thing too is, that we might want to consider doing is the next time I do a live culinary event, or I'm at Food and Wine Festival, something where I can bring the audience into the room. I get a lot of events, probably about 30% of my events, no cameras, no video, but
Mhm.
but a lot of my events also are, food and wine festivals and different events that
Right.
are public, or the hosts don't mind that there's outsiders in the room. So maybe we could do something live at one of my next live culinary events.
Absolutely, Chatters That Matter would love to follow you around. So we have been listening to Chef Eddie G, and you have been listening to Chatters That Matter. I am your show host, Cheryl Bryant-Bruce, MD, the Celebrity Doc. And again, as always, we want you to hit those like buttons. We want you to leave some comments, we'll get them to Chef Eddie G, and he'll answer those questions you may have. And we want you to share these shows with your friend. Chef, if people want to contact you, if they want to hire you for those amazing events that you give, I mean, obviously you have definitely got a great reference list going there. How do people get in touch with you?
I think probably everything's social media driven these days, from
Right.
LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, blah, 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 you name it, it's out there. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
if you Google Chef Eddie G, that keeps anybody busy, Chef EDDIEG. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, that's probably the easiest way to find me, and inbox. And I have a great team that we work with on the production side of stuff, and a great team that helps with the event side of stuff. So like I said, I'm super blessed. I try to help everybody in the world that I can. There's no reason why. See, and this is the thing too that I usually say at the end. I say two things. I say the thing that's going to bring the world together, our country to start, and the world together. And I think you and I talked about this in Las Vegas, is food will bring everybody together. Breaking Bread,
Absolutely.
which is one of the TV shows I work on, is called Breaking Bread, Lessons with Legends. We did one with Warren Moon,
Mhm.
XFNO player for the Houston Oilers, and we have
Yeah.
one coming up, Shannon Sharp. So those kind of situations where let's there's no reason why we can't all love each other and share a great meal and a great bottle of Fraticelli wine from Napa, and and
Yes.
everybody get along and talk about all the things. We all have more in common than we have not in common. So let's get that straightened away. Let's work on that. And then my father always said, become a dentist because everybody has a mouth. So I became a chef because everybody. But yeah, Chef Eddie G is a way to find. It's easy to find, and anything I could do to help or guide people in the right direction or share whatever. That's what we're here for. Is to help one another.
Absolutely. And the next time that we get together, we're definitely going to have to get together with those Fraticelli guys because we had way too much fun there in Las Vegas.
Oh my God, yeah. The other thing too is next year's Super Bowl is in New Orleans, so we're already starting. I got to go down to New Orleans next week also. So yeah, a lot going on. So
I'm planning on it, and
I'll see you in Sacramento. But
New Orleans, let's plan on doing something together because I definitely plan on making it down that way as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for joining us. And again, you've been listening to Chatters That Matter. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for supporting us. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. Our show airs on Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and you can catch the replays at any time by going to YouTube. So we look forward to seeing you again next week. Chatters That Matters. Remember, health is wealth. You are your greatest asset. Invest in yourself.
So it was such an honor to meet you at the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. And, your Chatters That Matter, we had been talking about it while we were in our mobile office together. And we had talked about this potentially happening where we get to sit down and chat a little and talk about things that matter. And here we are. And I'm honored to be involved with what you've got going on. I always, love to discuss food and events and sharing great stories and meeting great people. I think that's one of the greatest things that food and wine do, is it brings great people together. And like I've talked about before, is I think that's what's going to heal our country and our world is sharing food and getting to know people and really loving one another again. I don't think it's that hard, because we do have more in common than we don't, so and then as far as I'm Chef Eddie G, and I've been fortunate enough to be filming and being involved with Super Bowl events and TV shows, and I didn't even talk about the tailgating segment that we're working on in September. That'll be surrounding sporting events. I can't tell the name of it yet, but so we start filming in September for that, and as we discussed, the Lessons with Legends, Breaking Bread, BRED. We did one with Warren Moon. We have one with Shannon Sharp coming up. So there will be different athletes and influential people that really don't talk about so much what's going on in their lives now, but more like how they got to where they are in life, so it's not just the sports end of it. It's the leadership qualities of Warren Moon, or, his entrepreneurial ways and stuff like that. So, it's to me, food and beverage kind of fits into everything, doesn't it? So whether we're, whether we're celebrating or mourning or whatever, food is always in the picture. That's the one thing we all have in common on the planet, is we all need to eat. So to me, I love being in the food space. Like you've heard me say, my dad said, be a dentist because everybody has a mouth. So I became a chef because everybody has a mouth. And to me, it's about breaking bread, and it's about sharing stories and getting to know one another and finding our commonalities. And if we have something that we disagree on, we don't have to kill each other. We can have a civil conversation and cheers a glass of wine.